district chairpersons, committee members, volunteers, and club coaches. I want to welcome you to this short and informative session. COVID-19 has left a lot of uncertainty in your and our lives. I also spoke to many of you, and I wanted to know what positive things COVID-19 has, you guys have always focused on the negative, but we in the Western Cape, focus on the positive as well. And many of you said that it's brought your families closer together, you decluttered your homes, it actually ended wars, breaking patterns and habits, for me personally, it taught me to appreciate what I have. I lost an aunt to COVID-19 in England, and it brought me closer to my loved ones. And then from the coaching point of view, I mean, Zoom has helped a lot. It teaches your body to work in different patterns and thinking out of the box. The coaches had about 4 days to submit questions, which I submitted to our president that is present, and in the next half an hour, we will deal with the uncertainties. Remember, the government, as Alan Fritz said last week, the government's mandate is to save lives. It's not really swimming or sport doesn't take the front seat. So no more questions will be taken tonight, and then we will invite the presidents in about 3 weeks again, and to address us again. I would like to introduce the president of the Western Cape, Llewellyn. Llewellyn grew up in Oudtshoorn and was involved in swimming since 1980, where he learned to swim and then further participated in various competitions. He was a sportsman who excelled in rugby and cricket under the oppression laws. His interest in swimming came back in 2015 when his children learned to swim. As his children started swimming galas and progressed, he helped out and was co-opted onto the Eden Aquatics executive. And Llewellyn is best known as a transparent leader who follows protocol and is always willing to bring a comment or a consideration to the correct channels. Having worked with him on the executive, I want to add that Llewellyn is honest, hardworking, and an individual who has a reputation for being fair-minded and inclined not to gossip. He's invested in building sports, and Llewellyn has actually pledged over 100,000 Rand from the Western Cape money to coaches that actually need help the most. Many of you got money already, and you will continue to get money if he has anything to say about it. Llewellyn, over to you.
Benny, thanks for that kind words. I'm not always sure if my wife will agree with what you said, but I thank you for that kind words. I think, as you said, we're moving in uncharted waters in the current situation with COVID-19, and the essence of decisions that we take is probably aligned towards what you've mentioned, that the focus is how do we save lives. But also, I think what is important for me is the issue about what did COVID-19 learn us, and what did we learn from this whole process. The issue about family values, and being close to your loved ones. And it brings, I think, the concept of how do we bring us closer as one aquatics family in order for us to deal with this collectively in achieving more. Especially in this time, we're confronted with huge challenges and we need to work together. I think in steering our families, our places of work, our organizations through this rough waters. I see a new tomorrow that represents opportunity for our children to prosper and to enjoy the sport that we all love. But this will require that we work together as a collective, as I said, to ensure that we steer this boat in the right direction. We all have different views and also backgrounds, but it's good to differ. But let's find the opportunity in this difference of opinion. I'm therefore grateful for this engagement, that we share views and opportunities to make the sport we all love better. Ellen always said, we need to make aquatics athlete and coaches centered. The vision defines our role to establish structures and systems that should form the basis and the foundation of our sport. Thanks for the support from our executive. And I think that was the easiest decision to make that type of money available for that specific purpose, to establish and to support our coaches. I'm also humbled by the type of work that we get.
Llewellyn, can you just move a little bit back from your mic? You echoing. Thanks.
Okay, is it better now?
Just
is it better, Betty?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I think it was the easiest decision to provide support at the stage when coaches needed us. And I think we will do this again and again to give the support, because we need to find in each other as one aquatics family. How do we support each other in this time of need? I see the light in the tunnel. I hope everybody's seeing it as well. And hopefully we will be steering this boat in that direction for the next month. Hopefully we will get the final outcome. Thanks for the support from our executive committee. A lot of volunteers, we're all volunteers in this. And sometimes I see a lot of sacrifice that people have need to make in order for us to keep the aquatics in Western Cape going forward. So from my perspective, I want to thank you guys as well from our executive committee, but also our coaches, the hard work, and this time that you have went through a different struggle, that we could find each other, and we also identify possibly opportunities. For me, it's important that we need to find solutions, and that we can only do by being a collective. So thank you for that introduction, Bernie. I much appreciate it.
Llewellyn, would you like to introduce?
I would like to introduce our president, Mr. Alan Fritz, as part of this discussion. Alan is a man born and raised in East London. He started his interest in swimming in 1978 when swimming pools didn't exist in disadvantaged areas and kids swam in the Buffalo River due to segregation as well as the apartheid system. He got formally introduced and involved with sport under the Anti-Apartheid Swimming Association of Border, ASAB, through his club Piranhas Aquatics and became the General Secretary of the board. After the fall of apartheid, he served swimming as the Vice President and Chairperson of the governing body. He was then appointed as president, I think in 2016, that he currently still hold the office. Alan brings a wealth of experience as chairperson, co-CEO, and manager of large national corporations such as Mercedes, Sanlam Health, BestMed, Umvuzo Health, and others. Alan, we're honored to have you with us tonight, and we want to thank you for your leadership and driving this organization. I understand you also now looking at the opportunity of SASCOC. Good luck with that possibility. I think SASCOC needs you and our whole sporting fraternity. We are aware of the challenges due to the COVID, as I've mentioned, but I think in that challenges, there's always opportunity for us to work together, to work towards a solution through these challenges. Welcome to the Western Cape. Thanks for availing your time. But I also like to say, I understand you're also a taxpayer within the Western Cape, so you form part of this family. We look forward to your insightful input and direction. Thanks, Alan. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me, Bernie. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. I must just say that there are a couple that is still part of the Western Cape, Cape Metro family. The bestest whom I've met prior to 1980, it could have been about 1979, at the Sarswift tournament. And I want to honor people like that, that's given their lives, and their commitment to swimming is unwavered, and I highly appreciate people like that. I have, over the last 3-4 months, seen a tremendous pain and suffering in the swimming community. I've seen people lost their income, and it hurt me deeply. Llewellyn, you know that I am particularly a person that's no nonsense to our sport. And if you don't represent the interest of sport, I am quite in favor of you to leave the sport and go and do something else. If your ego is bigger than swimming, please leave our sport. And there is a parliament, particularly in Cape Town, there's a parliament. Join the people with big egos there. I want to thank Gary Bonney and his wife Sue. Constant contact with them, bouncing off ideas, sharing information. I'm very proud to be associated with people that take the sport very serious. And so there's a number of other people in the Western Cape in particular that are in contact with me. You know, one is forced into contacting the highest authority as best as possible to get the best information. And I've got no problem with people sending me a WhatsApp or dropping me an email. But I'm very, very firm in that we should never undermine our own structures. The Western Cape in particular has been through a very difficult period over the last, most probably 18 months to 2 years, necessitated me to ask Llewellyn to take the leadership. And that culminated in an elective conference or AGM where Llewellyn was elected as president. I'm pretty pleased that the Western Cape has chosen Llewellyn as the president, because Bernie's 100% right. His commitment is unwavered. But let's come back to the situation at the end. I must just say to the coaches in the room, I've coached since 1980, 81. I know what it is to wake up 4 o'clock and be at the pool at 5 o'clock to coach. I have particularly spent a lot of time in coaching. I've attended a lot of national tournaments, pre-94 and post-94. But as I said, at Swimming South Africa level, when I was asked to please come back and help set up a strategy that would make us a world-class organization, when all our swimmers that performed on the international stage were largely based in the US. In 2000, after Sydney, we changed strategy and believed that we have to believe in ourselves to produce world-class swimmers. And we've proved that we can. Our provinces are well structured to deliver on the mandate of swimming, because Swimming South Africa is not at the head office in Joburg. Swimming South Africa is the people in this room. And I'm very proud to associate it. I see Chanel van Wyk is on the chat, on video. When she was a swimmer, I made sure that wherever I work and I have the ability to support swimmers, I would do that. And Chanel will tell you that when I was a best mate, I made sure that they were well looked after in terms of their health. But back to COVID. COVID has brought about a great deal of pain and suffering to our communities across our country, inside and outside of swimming. We had ongoing discussions with the Department of Sport since level 5. It was definitely, as Llewellyn said, uncharted waters for our government. And I am very proud of the leadership that the government has shown in fighting the pandemic. I have, you know, sometimes this whole virus and the notion of the pandemic is sometimes distant from you. But when people start dying that you know and are close to you, then you realize that the stance that the government has adopted to save lives is not such a bad stance. We can always rebuild what we've lost. And all of us in this group has lost somewhat. If it's not income, if it's not a family member that has passed on, if it's not a family that is sick, or it's not a community member that you are touched by, or it's just a story on TV that you are touched with. We are all touched by it. But I'm very, very proud of the resilience showed in the swimming community. It is very, very tough. Sometimes I don't have answers, but I accept I'm a leader and I have to lead. In level 5, we met with the government. We set up the war room at SESCOC. We presented our case to government. We were adamant that we could have at least our elite athletes train at a central venue. We had discussions with the University of Pretoria to house the athletes there and make sure that they don't move. The university was adamant that they could not break the rules of the country in accommodating, and they were accommodating our swimmers, and they were instructed to close the institution. We eventually accepted level 5. In level 4, they asked us for a presentation to see how best our intentions is to reintegrate, because already then they were talking of non-contact sport being allowed to resume in level 3 under strict conditions. About a week from our last meeting on Friday, Llewellyn, I had a final meeting with the minister and the entire team at Sports and Recreation. We presented a detailed strategy to them, how we could resume our activities under very, very safe conditions. I had a two-pronged approach. One was, which I didn't tell them, because for people outside our community, swimming is swimming, okay? I had a very detailed plan in terms of how to drive elite swimming and how to drive the very important aspect of learn to swim. I immediately had a notion that learn to swim should be aligned to the education sector, because I knew that education was going to open before sport was going to be open and before some industries were going to open. And I had discussions with the education department and the sports department on how best this could take place. Angie Mashego was quite absolute in her views that no co-curricular activities. I thought I made my case very well, but it sort of fell on deaf ears, because I was convinced, just as you can create a safe environment in the schools, you could create a safe environment in learn to swim environment under very, very strict conditions. I was convinced that when we put our medical committee together under the leadership of Professor Rajan Naidu, that the swimming environment is much safer than the cycling environment or a road running environment. We then had our second meeting with the ministry, which the minister didn't attend himself, but other officials were there. And subsequent to that, the minister accepted that he would meet with us again. And I presented to him with Jay, Sean, and Ziggy a very detailed, and Eileen, a very detailed plan around the federation's needs, where the federation is financially. And when I say federation, I also speak on behalf of the provinces, because it is important, and when the federation has the ability to access funds, so should the provinces and the districts. And they acknowledge that federations has been through hardship, and they will definitely look at how to make funds available This is the undertaking that the minister has made to the national federations. I immediately said to him, listen, it's important that the provinces be, and he said, look, he said to me, Alan, 60% of the National Sports Department's budget go to the provinces, okay? So there should be application by the provinces for assistance, but we await the regulations. The second point we've made to the minister is the resumption of competitions at level 4, 3, 2, and 1. And level 1 meant that we want to start all national competitions. The ministry agreed to that, and level 3's regulations, you will see, is very, very much based on the presentation we made to the minister, because there is certain things that we have to accept. One is no opening of public swimming pools. We accepted that. No opening of gyms. We accepted it because it does have great danger, and it is very costly for a Virgin Active to open for a few select swimmers and not being able to run full business. It would actually mean bigger losses for them. But when we said to the minister, we are talking here about training venues, okay? And please, when you engage your local government and your provincial, talk about training venues. Don't talk about club swimming pools, because they get confused sometimes. And our approach in our letter to the, our final letter to the ministry is that there are 3 things that are important for us. Is allow the professional athlete to train. And I'll give you a definition now of professional athlete is the way we presented it to the minister. We absolutely bought into the idea of maintaining the standard around health protocols and how it should be done. And the third aspect is we would engage with the Ministry of Sport, the Minister of Transport, how athletes can safely be commuting between in and out of hotspots. Now there are 5 very serious hotspots in our country. It's Cape Town Metro, it is Buffalo City in East London, it's eThekwini in Durban, it's Joburg City. Tshwane wasn't part of that, but Tshwane is now part of it, and Ekurhuleni is part of that, okay? So there's actually 7 hotspots. So, and by and large, swimming takes place in those hotspots. So our engagement is that there should be safe passage, and this is what we recommend to the ministry, and this is what we will resubmit in a proposal in our resumption document when the regulations are published, that the ministry accept that we will identify right down to club level training venues. And these venues must not be public swimming pools or gyms. Okay. It's unfortunately, but it's hard. I know it's hard, but Command Council, which is actually running the country at the moment, was quite adamant in those tools. I wasn't prepared to take a fight to them and lose the whole battle. Okay. So our view is health protocols. I'll explain them to you now. And I'll come back to the hotspots. Our view is that the definition of an athlete is everybody that's registered with Swimming South Africa. Swimming South Africa will issue every athlete through our provincial structures with a permit, every training venue with a permit, and every coach with a permit. Okay? So the training venue will have a permit, the coach will have a permit, and that's why I encourage everybody to make sure that your registration is done before the end of this 14 days, so that when there is a check on the training venue, the registration of the athlete and the registration of the coach, we have it in order, okay? We don't know yet what's in the regulations. There are draft regulations that are circulating, but we don't know what's in the final regulation, but we want to be as ready as possible. So we're gonna take from the database everybody that's registered and issue them with the permit. I had a copy, an example of a permit on my table here. The health protocol. Every training venue must have a compliance officer, a district must have a compliance officer, a province must have a compliance officer, and a national office must have a compliance officer. And I have just, you're the first persons that know this, I have just appointed Anton Jordan as the compliance officer for Swimming South Africa. So he will write to all provinces to advise who the compliance officer is for the province, who the compliance officer for the district, who the compliance officer for each training venue. Okay? Meaning for each club in our language, each swim school in our language. Okay? I don't differentiate between a swim school and a club when I speak to the government, because that would just confuse them. Okay? So I rather refer to it as training venues, and every swimmer, because the regulation, I think this is what we put forward. The regulation will speak to a professional athlete, a person that's preparing for a national gala. Now you can have Little Feet national galas. You can have level 1 national galas. You can have level 2. And most of those, in fact, all of our galas are hosted in provinces. Okay. The second element to that is an athlete that prepares for national championships and an athlete that prepares for international championships, including youth championships and Olympics. That's our definition of a professional athlete. Okay. We must wait, and I want to repeat this, we must wait until the regulation spells that out. I have put that in a letter that I've sent out. Now around the health protocols, we in industry are practicing that already. I get when I enter my workplace, I don't know if you can see this, is my video on? Can you see me, Llewellyn? I get checked every morning when I get to work at the gate, my temperature is taken. I go underneath in the basement, I park my car, I go up to the office, I get signed in, and I get tagged, because the rule is social distancing. We don't allow in our work environment. We have 300 people working there, only 100 at a time. And if I don't have a sticker and I don't have a wristband, I'm not allowed in the building. And we have to implement similar measures at our training venues. We, in addition to that, there's a questionnaire, and Sean is working on the questionnaire now. You should be receiving a draft of that soon, because when the government receives our submission, this is the 14-day period, and the government said, Swimming South Africa, you are ready to resume, we want to switch on. So number one, we have a compliance officer for each and every structure. We have understanding what the health protocols are, on entry, on an exit, sanitization, but Sean will put this all in a document. The very important reason for doing that is tracing. If there's an outbreak in your school, you have all the records, who has entered the school, who has entered the club. I'm talking this language to you because you understand. But when I talk to the government, I talk about the training venue. Everybody that has entered your accredited training venue can be traced and can then have follow-up testing. It is important to note, once you scan, and this will all be in the communication, once you've scanned the individuals that are entering, and a person is above, I think 37.2, I can't remember the exact temperature, that person must be turned away, because if you were in industry and you scan a person whose temperature is high, that person will be moved to a identified room. The NICD will be contacted, but a training venue doesn't have all that. So the training venue will say, listen, your temperature is high, please return to your vehicle, contact the NICD hotline or your health provider who will give you guidance in that regard. Sean will put that all in a document for all our affiliates. The last aspect, I just want to say, any affiliated or registered member of the Western Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, Eastern Cape, whatever province, is not allowed to have training commencing unless we have clearance from the government in terms of our state of readiness. Let me call it state of readiness. Meaning, we have a compliance officer, we have an identified training venue, we have certification in terms of our own accredited process where we would issue you with a with a permit. If you are training prior to that, you are playing in the hands of the law. Okay. I encourage every swim school. I encourage every coach. I encourage every instructor. Please make sure that you're on the database of Swimming South Africa. When I say Swimming South Africa, you register at district level, and the folk that's on the chat tonight will know what I'm talking about. They are far better school than me in the registration processes. I always say tongue in cheek, if you have a problem with money, please talk to your provincial president or talk to your district president. But all I need is to issue people with a permit. You must be on the Swimming South Africa data. If you're not there, we can't issue it, because if we are audited, our compliance officer has taken a lot of responsibility. If you are engaged in training activities and you are not on the database and we are audited, the compliance officer can go to jail. The last aspect that's very, very concerning to me, you know, my wife has been locked down in Blouberg for the last 3-4 months already. Alone at home with my sons. My wife and my daughters are there because my one daughter had an accident. She fell and broke a double fracture. And I always say to them, we are aware that Western Cape and Cape Town in particular is a hotspot. Don't expose yourself unnecessarily. So our idea is that we have to manage the hotspots as best as possible. It's the Minister of Transport that's going to give us the green light. How people commute out of the hotspot from home to training venue and back. Okay. It may be that they want to issue certificate themselves or the permit themselves, but we assume, and we have discussed it with them in that regard, that our permit should allow people to commute with the necessary protocols in place. Okay, here's the ESSA test. Let's hope everything I told you, this is what we told the ministry, is in the regulation. Then Swimming South Africa is in a very good position to accredit and permit people that are identified as training venues. Those will be managed at the lowest level of Swimming South Africa. If they are non-compliant, if you are not compliant, please ask your district or ask your province to assist. We all stand ready to ensure that our sport can resume. And I can tell you now, we have a forum of 8, 9 non-contact sport, and we all sing the same hymn. If you had listened to Radio SA-FM tonight, or Radio Metro, you'd have heard Grant Hepburn from golf being interviewed, and he would have said exactly the same thing. So all non-contact sport. In fact, I had a meeting this afternoon. Unfortunately, I couldn't attend, but Ziggy and Jace attend. And we want our approach to be the same, because we want to influence the regulation to be the same. Yesterday, Grant and 3 other people had a meeting with Sumaya Khan, Deputy Director General of Sports and Recreation. And the feedback that we got was very positive feedback. So there's no doubt non-contact sport in South Africa will resume. It's under what conditions we resume and the submissions we give to government within the 14-day period of the publish of the regulations. I want our federation to be as best prepared for what's coming out of the regulation. And what I've shared with you tonight is exactly what we presented government prior to our meeting with the presidents, and your president attended the meeting. And we did give feedback on the same presentation we took to government. And you'll see, for those that have seen the presentation, that what we have in the presentation is what's exactly been in the minister's speech. Okay. The minister asked us 2 questions out of our whole presentation. One was, because we had a slide in there claiming that swimming, because of chlorine and so on, is much safer and it's scientifically proven. We had documentation from the American equivalent of our Disease Control Council He has asked for more evidence. We've asked our medical team to assist in that regard. The other question that they asked, can't recall now whether it was, any case, it was a lesser important question, but it was definitely around the athlete, the readiness of the athlete, and the mobility of the athlete between areas out of hotspot, which was a concern for them, because the regulation will state that, this is my assumption, the regulation will state clearly that people living in hotspots has to have certain compliance in terms of traveling. Right now, if you look at people jogging, cycling in hotspots, it is extremely, extremely dangerous. Unfortunately, people have been locked down for a long time. People want to get out. But we as swimming must ensure that we take the necessary precaution to ensure that we are as safe as possible. Because I always say, it is not the athlete that will get sick, because the immunity of young people is much stronger. It's mom and dad and grandpa and grandma at home that will get sick. And we must support the government in its endeavors to save lives. Okay? I'm going to stop there, Llewellyn, and see if there's any questions that I can answer.
Thank you, Alan. I think I will just add a few aspects that, in terms of some of the questions, maybe on hotspots. The hotspots that you define is more centered around the metros, but I think there was a few others that includes districts like West Coast, Overberg, and Cape Winelands within
Winelands,
Western
particular
Cape.
Winelands is Hadid.
Winelands, yes. So I think they're also affected by it, and it's in the entire metro area and not in wards or sub-districts. So, but I think in terms of a issue or a letter issued by the Minister of Health on the 27th of May, he indicated that they will do constant assessment in terms of areas, in terms of how to contain measures that implement the levels, and if they need to go down to sub-district levels and ward levels, that was something that they will consider. But I think in terms of the hotspots, those are additional that was identified specifically related to the Western Cape.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add one other aspect as well. I think there's a question about, are we going to review our competition structure? Given that we might get the go-ahead in will events, for example, take place. But I think the question also specifically relates to spectators, for example, allowed within that events, if that is something that we will be considering. But I assume the answer lies also in what the minister said, is that all sports will take place behind closed door in empty stadiums, and control measures to be followed. But I assume that in your discussions and submission within this 14 days that you are allowed to do that, those are matters that you need to clarify probably from Swimming South Africa in the events that might take place, and what is the planning? Are we going to review that?
Yeah. Llewellyn, if I could just respond, because I'm on the wrong side of 50, I'm going to forget all the things that you're asking.
Okay, I'll cut this.
Just to go back to the hotspots. I've already seen in Joburg, they drill down to, they don't call them wards. In Joburg City, they call them districts. Okay. There are 3 hotspots in Joburg City. Randburg, where I work, is a terrible hotspot. Sandton, and I think there's one more. Okay. Now, I want to ask the ministry to exempt other districts, particularly in Gauteng, that are not hotspots, because it may just be a venue that's highly concentrated, a district that's highly concentrated with swimming. And then we have to go through rigmarole of regulation. So I do understand in the case of the minister has also said that the Ministry of Health will review periodically the status of hotspots. I do understand that as of discussion yesterday, I didn't watch any news feedback today, that there is a team dispatched to the Western Cape. There's about 20 Cuban doctors, the Ministry of Health, the Health Department, and all other. There's a massive intervention underway in the Western Cape. And I'm not sure if the Western Cape folk are aware of this. So it may be in our interest to approach the Western Cape government as well. We understand the problem there. But there may be localities that is not hotspots that could exempt the athlete from the transport regulation that would be coming out. The third point was around spectators. We have represented, and I hope our federation accepts this, that we will not allow any spectators at training venues and competition venues when they resume in the immediate future. We will review that as we have interactions with the minister. Our next interaction is 2 weeks from now when they prepare for level 2. We will review that at every meeting with the minister, and we will take our cue from the health department. Whatever the health department publish, we will take our cue from there. Okay, so we don't want to compromise. For us, it's about the athlete and the coach or the instructor first. The second point is, what was your last point? See, I should have written it down. Can you recall what was your last point?
Yeah, I think you. Yeah, I think that you covered those the 2 points that I referred to. I think within the submission then to the I think is it the president, the Sports Council, or to the minister, that you need to submit some documentations in terms of how that will be done. I think you've covered that specific question.
I just maybe want to say, as far as school, I'm talking about academic school now. As far as schools are concerned, we have a problem. And I don't want swimming to end up there. When we talk about readiness, it must not be a half-hearted attempt. And I understand it's going to cost money. Where the Department of Education made a grave mistake is that they insisted that the schools return, and yet the schools from an hygiene and health protocol were not ready. I can tell you now, when the parents reject something, they reject it in its totality. And you can see throughout the country that very little schools open. I don't want our swim schools to be at the level where the parents are going to reject us, because that's where our sport's going to get damaged. Okay. And to get back from a situation where the parents said, I'm not taking my child to the swim school for ABC reasons, we must create a level of comfort. Even if we take a week extra, another week extra, but to make sure that, and I call them training venues, that our training venues are fully equipped, our protocols are in place, our compliance officers are there, and we are ready to build and promote, because I understand and I accept that throughout our country, clubs, professional coaches, instructors, and swim schools, in our case, is businesses and it's people's livelihood. I want to protect your livelihood by saying, be prepared as best you can.
Okay. And Ellen, I think just in follow-up on that specific matter, I think you said Sean them will identify or develop a policy directive on how facilities and what will be the requirements. I think it will scale down to a club level or to a swimming school that they need to follow the necessary guidelines, but also develop their own policies, given the framework that will be provided. So we will provide that framework, and it can be adapted to the province, the district, and to the training venue. In our language, the club or the swim school. We hope to have that out to Ellen before we meet on Friday, because we would rather preempt what's coming our way from the ministry. We can always adapt. Okay, we can always say, take this out, put this in. Okay.
Competitions, the competitions.
A few other.
Sorry, you were asking about the competitions. Remember initially?
Yes, the competitions.
Yeah, when we first met and with our medical team, I mean, long before, at least a week before the lockdown was announced by the president, we have already, and you were affected in Oudtshoorn, we already cancelled our competitions. We are no doubt ready to provide you with the best support you can get, but we also want to make sure that your support base is your district, okay? So that you, not the whole country phones Joburg and phones Anton, that when you have your offices identified, Anton can run a training program on Zoom or Google Teams to ensure everybody has the same thinking, everybody's got the same approach, because there's nothing missed over the last while when we couldn't say anything. It created such animosity and people were very unhappy. But we have an opportunity to communicate now. We can communicate a number of things. We can communicate our approach to the ministry. Once the regulation is public, we can work through the regulation. What's yay, what's nay. We can help with the compliance and so on. So I would really encourage that there's more interaction. From where we sit, Llewellyn, we have decided that the national office bearers of Swimming South Africa and the provincial presidents will meet every Friday, talk through issues of common interest and talk issues what's worrying. And we initially decided that when we met in March, early March, that we will move our competitions to start the 15th of June. And then we met again to move them to July. It's highly unlikely that we will have been level 1. We've accepted, we proposed to government that we start competitions in level 1. So level 1 would most probably be August. So the earliest that we will have national competitions would be around September.
Okay.
Just will give an update on Friday.
Also a quick Friday. There was also a question about testing and athletes and I think, also officials. That's a requirement before they start that they do the necessary testing. I know you refer in your letter specifically to that matter. If there's something you want maybe just to highlight.
Yeah, I think
that will be a requirement or not.
Yeah, I think that the government used wrong terminology, because testing is very expensive, okay? It can cost you up to 1,000 rand to get tested. The Ministry of Health was very clear. If you have no symptoms, you don't need to test. But it doesn't mean you must not screen. Screening and testing is two different things. Screening is taking temperature, recording in terms of the questionnaire, and if a person, say for example, complete the questionnaire, has had contact with a COVID person, has traveled abroad in the last 30 days, we fill those questionnaires in every day where I work, okay? And Sean is going to send you the. In that screening process, if an answer to a question is contrary to what it should be, that person should not be allowed in. And say, please go for testing, okay? When there's doubt, when the temperature of a person's high, so your temperature is high, we suggest you go for testing, okay? So don't allow anybody in a training venue that there's deviation from the norms that are set in that questionnaire. That's the safest. But I don't foresee, there's not enough there's not enough testing kits. I can't see us testing everybody and anybody that's going to be involved in taking an athlete to a training venue, the coach, or as the regulations call them, support staff. Yeah. It is not a feasible way of doing it. But screening is totally different.
Okay. Also, there's a question on the impact of the virus created, that people spend less time in the pool currently. How will it affect, for example, the athletes to compete in this events, if the events ever take place? So the question was related to the qualifying times. And I think, are we going to amend that? Is it something that we're considering looking at, given the effect of the athletes not being swimming and might not just be up to the requirement as previously? How do we provide that type of opportunity just to allow our kids to participate and take that in consideration?
Yeah, before I answer that, Roland, I think that our support staff to the athlete must make sure that social distancing it's a very, very important aspect. When athletes enter the training venue, if your venue cannot take more than 6 athletes at a time, reduce the number, okay? Make sure that the precautionary measures and the safety measures take precedent over anything that you do. Just to come back to qualifying times, if my memory serves me correctly, I mustn't say that I'm on the wrong age of 50. If the besters listen to me and says that they actually call me a youngster. So I think we've taken a decision, and you must help me, that qualifying times will be as last year's qualifying times.
Yes, Alan, you sent out a letter that the qualifying times will not be amended.
Correct.
Yes.
I think that's right, Bernie, and I think Llewellyn was in that meeting when we agreed to that.
Can I just...
something that I need to double check, Bernie?
No, you sent it out in the letter.
Okay. So that's exactly the position of Swimming South Africa.
These questions were before the letter was had landed. Yes. Just a few questions that the coaches have asked. Will Swimming South Africa write a letter to the schools or facilities?
Yeah. In the case of the province can take that responsibility. It will certainly have the blessing of Swimming South Africa to do that. We don't want to bubble everything up to Swimming South Africa. You must remember, Western Cape Aquatics is just Swimming South Africa in the province. Okay, so province must take that responsibility to liaise with all accredited training venues. If I know the school that you are at in Durbanville. Yeah. If that's a training venue, and the province must go and visit the venue, or the district must go and visit the venue, make sure that there's compliance. There's compliance officer, the province, the district's compliance officer, and the district will then inform the province, who will inform Swimming South Africa. Then we have all the data. We can say, we'll open our file and say to the ministry or whoever comes and audit, there's all the data for the Western Cape. And when they physically send their people to go and visit the area, in fact, the story that we tell them on paper should exactly be the story in practice.
But we will get the policy of and procedures of safe practice.
Yes, no doubt about that.
Okay, then there's another 2 or 3 questions. You answered that. Okay, we are an amateur federation. Just a bit of confusion about the professional athletes and the amateur federation. I think Swimming South Africa has said professionals, but they actually meant
this is our stance in terms of a professional athlete. Any athlete that's registered with the federation. The department calls it the Code of Sport, which is actually a national federation. And today, the non-contact sports people has asked for clarification on that, and they're going to use the words federation, I think. Any athlete that's registered with the federation, pay its capitation fee, participate in national, whether it's junior national or senior national competitions, participate in international competitions or the Olympic Games, is a professional athlete in our position to the ministry.
Okay, so that's just for our stance at the moment.
Yeah, because in our country there's only 3 codes of sport that pay athletes. It's rugby, it's soccer, and it's cricket.
Yes. Okay, so we remain amateurs clubs.
Yeah, and don't use the word amateur and professional. Just use the word registered with the National Federation.
Okay.
Okay. I think if my belief is that they will clarify that in the regulations that are coming out. Don't hold me to it. That's our interpretation.
Okay. Yeah.
See
Then
that,
the last question.
Bernie, I
Yes.
see that the Sports Council in Cape Town has a similar interpretation as us from a professional athlete point of
Yes.
view.
Yes,
Yeah.
we got that.
Professional athletes means players, in our case, athletes who are registered with a code of sport for a particular sporting event. And we added to that participate in in junior nationals, senior nationals, international, and Olympic Games.
And then the last question, do you believe that the national and provincial executives should be answerable to their members or able to make decisions without justifying their actions?
Look, we are representing the interests of the members.
Yes.
Okay, we are elected office bearers by the members.
Yeah.
We can deviate, and that's what has gone wrong in SESCOC, Bernie. The SESCOC board acted on their own without consulting the members, federations, and in Swimming South Africa, we don't want to be there. Firstly, we are elected by the provincial affiliates as national office bearers. We have a constitution. We have 2 annual general meetings, special general meeting and annual general meeting every year. We have 2 presidents' council, and that's where we get our mandates from. Okay, and it should permeate throughout our organization. Okay, at provincial level, at district level, there should always be accountability to members, and that accountability is not one person standing on the top of Table Mountain and shouting. That's an assembly. It's a general meeting where you give mandate and you ask questions, okay? We don't want to be an unruly organization. We must be an organization that's properly constituted. And if I have an issue in my club, I take it to my district and I raise my issue. If you have an issue with the province, you take it through your district and your district represents your issue. If you sit in your club in the Western Cape and you've got an issue with the national office bearers, you ensure that your district understands what the issue is and they will take it to the province to take to the national. We mustn't become an unruly organization. Keep to our constitution, keep to our protocols, and I'm convinced that everybody's voice will be heard. I'll tell you a little bit of a surprise. I thought in this country we have about, give or take, about 3,000 swim schools.
We lost you, Adam.
Presently surprised. A handful of them registered with Swimming South Africa. I'm talking about our districts and our provinces and so on. And that shouldn't be. Because then, how do we support a person that runs into difficulty in a swim school in Pofadder? Okay? Yeah. As they're drowning. The government will hold us responsible. I'll give you an example. And for you that are in open water swimming, about 3 years, 4 years ago, there was a drowning at Mitma.
Yes.
I was the president. He had a call from national government, Department of Water Affairs and Forestry, I think, to please come and explain. Jason and I went to the meeting. They wanted to know from us what happened, why. We couldn't say no, and it is Wayne Ridden's problem. He's the organizer of the event. We took responsibility. We said we'll give you a full report, and before we could submit a report, the provincial government of KwaZulu-Natal called us, wanting to know exactly the same. We can't turn our backs on anybody in our federation, whether you registered or not. Because the national act, the law says you are the federation responsible for the sport. So if something happens at a swim school, we must be able to protect that swim school and say, this is what happened. I live in Centurion. As Mr. Whelan said, I've got 2 addresses down there. And about a week ago, during lockdown, a child near drowning, about say 5 kilometers from where I live. I was in that vicinity, stopped and I asked, and I saw the ambulance. Child was fetched by a chopper, and they said it was a drowning. But I said, how can it be a drowning when no sport is supposed to take place? It was a home swimming pool, and the kids were running around the pool. Child couldn't swim, and luckily for us, that wasn't a swim school. If that was a swim school, all hell would have broke loose. And we must avoid being in situations like that. So I said to many, particularly I've very close contact with the swim schools these days, because it's where the biggest voices are coming from, and I accept that. I said, please ensure that you are registered with your district, that you talk to your provincial coordinator, your district coordinator, because if you are not and trouble comes, we will have to stand up. I would hate the day and say, I don't know these people. I would really hate the day, because we can't do that. That is where we will destroy our sport. Our sport is an all-encompassing sport. It's a membership that drives our sport. But most important, from where I said, and Llewellyn said it earlier on, we are athlete-centered and we are coach-support. If you are not in the sport for that, my advice is get out, because you are representing yourself. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Your office bearers in the Western Cape will tell you that I took that decision when somebody was representing herself. I can't have that.
So what you're saying is no swimming, coaching swimming until you say we got to go ahead.
Until we come back, we have a window of 14 days to do representation. Once the regulations is published, regulations is not out yet. Once we've done our submission and we received feedback, and they say they're happy with us, then it's go ahead. Okay, I don't want anybody to get in trouble. But also make sure, for me, it's about the readiness. So I'm saying to all training venues, make sure that you are ready. Unfortunately, for guys that are training at gyms and at public pools, we had to accept what the Command Council said, and I know the difficulty. So we will not stop the fight there. We will continue the fight, because we believe that if the municipality said no public, must use the amenity, but it's open for the professional athlete, then we are a step in the right direction. And we're not giving up. We're not giving up.
Okay. And
Benny,
then,
can I just add one part quickly?
Yes. Yeah.
I think the question about accountability, it relates to everyone within aquatics, and that also coaches, people working within the districts and in clubs. There's always accountability. I've become aware that there's some clubs and some people that started to operate. Now, I think that's a dangerous thing to do, given that it will affect the whole organization and as well as aquatics. And I would love members, please, to refrain from doing that. It is the focus is on government is to save lives, and you unfortunately are playing with people's lives, which is for me a very serious matter, because our kids is affected by it. And I think if the law will come down on you, it even means that it can be seen as an attempt of murder, given the seriousness of this virus. The virus is serious in the Western Cape. I've listened earlier. We've got 23,000 people affected by it. And there's over 500 people dead already. So let's get ourselves first ready before we move towards opening schools. And those that's busy doing it, please refrain from it. Otherwise, you might be in trouble, and it's breaking the law. So from our perspective, I think we want to give clearly that direction, that we're not going to compromise swimming, aquatics, and Western Cape Province. If you're breaking the law, we will also be dealing with you. And if we need to do that, we'll open up cases at the police if required. Thanks.
It was just, Llewellyn, if I may, it was just Bernie. It was just a question on, I understand from today from one of my friends, it's an advocate in Pretoria, the Pretoria High Court. Please don't hold me to it, because I don't know the real outcome. I haven't seen any documentation. The constitutional, not the constitutional court, the High Court has declared the regulations invalid. Now, I'm not sure what the ruling is from the judge, and whether this may go to the constitutional court. We will keep an eye on it. It's serious. So we will take precaution as far as possible and operate within the ambits of the regulation. So we'll watch the space and keep an eye over the regulation, over the law, over the case. But for us, from where I sit, I ask everyone and each and everyone, please, the safety and the health and lives are more important at this stage, and we must do best of our ability to stick to the regulations as provided by the Department of Health and what the Sports Ministry will issue as regulation.
Before I close off, I want to actually encourage all the clubs with swim schools to register. I think the swim schools is R100 per registration, and the swimmers for swim schools, I don't know how much, but I will find out and I'll send out a circular. And then
that's zero. Sunny, they're paying
Sure.
0 and then 20 rands for registration.
Oh, okay. That's
What Bernie was saying is maybe the Swimming South Africa's registration fee for a swim school is R100. I don't know what the district and the province charge. But Swimming South Africa, for
20 rand.
for every little athlete in a swim school is subsidized by Swimming South Africa. We don't require any capitation. Okay, what the district and the province charge is out of my control. So it's only R100, and really that R100 really just goes towards administration.
okay.
And we want to keep it as low as possible because we want every swim school to be in the fold of Swimming South Africa. It's important.
Yes. Yeah. And will you've been willing to speak to us in the next 3 weeks?
Look, Llewellyn knows, and he abused me sometimes because he knows my heart is very close to the
We abuse
you
you.
tell me, if you give me a day or two's notice, I'll make a plan. If it's after hours, even better.
Yes. Okay. Well, that wraps this up. Thank you, Alan.
Thanks.
Thank you, Llewellyn. And thank you, coaches, and administrators, chairpersons, committee members, and volunteers. I think all the questions have been answered. If your question hasn't been answered, feel free to email me and I will get the answer.
Thank you, Bernie. I just want to say,
Thanks.
just
Thanks,
to say
Bernie.
finally, yeah, what I've shared with you is Swimming South Africa's position. Let's hope that the regulations stick to what we presented and what other non-contact sport presented. There is a non-contact sport forum that meets almost daily, and I will endeavor to send to your presidents all the discussions that are taking place, and you can disseminate it. But I really want to say, Bernie, if you'd allow me, thank you to one and all. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate what you're doing for swimming. I know some of you have put in long hours, very stressful, and I really want to tell you, please keep the faith. But most importantly, there's light at the end of the tunnel, as Llewellyn said. It's not a train coming down our way. Keep the faith, but most important, keep safe. See you next time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Alan.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks, Bernie. And all the best to our coaches. I think I'm hopeful we'll get to the end. But it's a collective effort, as I requested. I can just build on this, and that's where we need to find each other and talk to each other. So communication is a key aspect, and I think that should be the basis for our foundation taking Western Cape forward, is to find each other and work with each other. And I'm more than welcome and happy to have constantly this type of discussion and open dialogue about how do we take aquatics forward and building it from it. Thanks for your effort, Bernie, for setting this up as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.